Hey, it's Juan for pedalsandeffects.com, part 2 bass compression with the fucking compressor genius. Robert Keeley's here. I use the compressor on the left. It's the compressor limiter format, we'll say. Okay, good. Correct me anytime, because I will fuck shit up. Yeah. So I love that. When you sent it to me, and then I play in a band called Halo Orbit. The guitar player is my friend Sugar. She lives in Japan. And she borrowed mine at rehearsal, and she fell in love with it. And you were kind enough to send another one for her.
That's great.
So it's over in Japan. She swears by it. It's always on her board.
Nice.
Love it. So a lot of my dudes people who are, I guess, interested in what I do, they've always known me to play the Boss CS2 compressor. And I have like 6 of them. I give them away to friends, and I leave them at studios that I know I'm going to record at a lot, so there's always one there. I've been using it since Racer X because in the 80s, Billy Sheehan and Eddie Van Halen were like the big dudes popping harmonics all over the place, and you had to do it. And I couldn't figure out how to do it just going straight bass. So somebody said, oh, Billy Sheehan uses a compressor. I've told the story a million times, but yes, he uses a compressor. So I went through, I had a Roland rack unit that had a bass preamp that had a compression section. So I was like, that's all I need. Mm-hmm. That one squashed it more, didn't really pop it. Then I said, well, I'll try the Boss one, and it was the Boss CS2, and I've used it ever since. So I've had my friend Robert Carranza analyze it in the studio, and I said, I really want to know what is it doing that I like, or what is it? So we were going A/B in it, and he goes, oh, okay, well, not only is it obviously distorting and overdriving it a little, your signal, he goes, it's adding top end. And he goes, that's probably what you like. And then it also, yes, it pops harmonics. So when you're doing something like this, so what's happening is the harmonics now get to be at the same, what you appeared in your ears as the same level as the low notes. You hear that low note, it's very pronounced, it's big, register, but then the harmonics are now lifted. If you have it off, you won't hear the harmonics as loud.
Let's listen to it.
Yeah, so.
Here's off.
It depends also on the instrument, but if you. That G is screaming louder, and the musicality of it comes out. So that's really, like Sheehan was always. And he was bending his neck and stuff. And so all of us in the 80s were like, that's what we got to do as well. So I've been using it ever since. And then what I've noticed over time, over years of getting into effects and stuff, I noticed that on a lot of effects, if I used it ahead of things, that effect actually came to life more. And what I think is happening, Robert, what I always tell people, like when I'm just explaining it, I always think it's because it's actually compressing the headroom, so to speak. Yep. So then because a lot of these effects are made for guitar or they're not made for big registered instruments like a bass. And so it lets me articulate what the pedal could do more by doing that. Do you think that's anywhere that's a little bit accurate?
So you take that signal and you bring it down to a smaller guitar level signal or a manageable signal. And I think you're saying that the effects afterward seem to respond better as well. I totally agree. Especially if it was anything that was digital or modulation or chorus based or anything like that. I think it would work better in that particular case.
Okay, and then the other thing that I've always used it ahead of is I do always use it ahead of my fuzzes and my microsynths, which are fuzz units with anyway. But I've always known that they've become more aggressive. There's just more articulation to them. And when I shut them off, they might be bigger, but the articulation isn't there. So I've always noticed that it really, like I always say, it just kind of rams the pedal or the effect, and it just kind of tweaks it more. Sure. Harmonics, when I pop them, they go twinky crazier. So if we had another effect, you'd be able to hear what I was talking about. Sure. But so my I just said, well, I always got to have this Boss compressor on it in the front end, and to this day I still use it. And the problem with it, obviously, is that because it's picking up, like it's kind of overdriving your signal. And also, like I use single coil pickups, so all these lights would create a buzz, and you would hear that through everything. So the sound man's always going, who's buzzing on stage? And I got to go. And then I turn and I go, is it gone yet? And all of a sudden it disappears. And they're like, really? And I'm like, or I was telling Robert yesterday, I'll be recording and they go, what's that buzzing? Then I'll go like this and I'll eventually go like that. And they go, good, it's gone. Record like that. And I have to record like that because the compressor sustainer is also adding volume to the interference in the room. And if you're in a club that has really shitty wiring and interference and bad lights, I'm in hell. So that's been my the difficult bane in my life. So, now I come across your compressor, and I understand that when we shot Nick's yesterday, there's a difference, obviously, in these compressors. And when I watched it, I go, oh, okay, compressor sustainer, compressor limiter. And there was things that you spoke about that I didn't understand. So I learned a lot. So if you want to rewind or actually it'll be in another video. So go watch Nick's video where Robert really, articulates perfectly how a compressor limiter works, because I didn't get it. But so we're going to go and we're going to rock some bass through compressors.
Yeah, let's show them what there's a couple things I really like about old school compressors, and the way in this case it distorts pretty darn well with single coil pickups here, and I was calling it like a Rickenbacker sound, but anyway, let's listen for the distortion in this simple compressor sustainer that occurs that I like. If we take it off.
Okay. Sounds like, you know what it sounds like to me? This is what I DI bass. So whenever you ever recorded and they have your amp mic'd up and you have the DI signal straight into the board and they pull up the DI, you always go, God, I suck. I sound like complete shit. I know that Tim Comerford, when he started recording with Rage Against the Machine, making the records, when they were doing I think it's this Evil Empire record, he wouldn't let them have a DI because he hated the way it's just used the mic and no DI. Because they always we want the DI to, add things to a little clarity, but he hated the way because whenever it pulls up, it was just, we sound like garbage. It's all the coloring that we do. So, anyway,
it's the coloring,
but that's what it kind of sounds like. It's just like, as soon as you pulled it off, it's like all of a sudden I shrunk to this big. So,
that's
meaning
pretty
as
cool.
a human being.
I like it, So that's what that does. And again, I think when you're playing the harmonics, if you play a compressor sustainer, so an old school stomp box type compressor, those benefits that you get are the increased distortion also makes harmonics come out. The increased highs, if you can add those back in, a lot of them have blend controls, and
that's what that switch is. When you heard I use the CS2, you bumped that switch up,
I did,
and it gave it the brightness.
Yes, it's like that control on there. So so those things can be advantageous to a bass when you're trying to get certain things to ring out and make it easier to play.
Right.
It's much more even in response. A little bit. In some ways, the bass drops out. And we're looking at a pretty easy example on the compressor because you got single coil pickups there.
Right.
Passive guitar.
Right.
If bass players moved anything that's active, this thing, which we're going to look at a little bit later, is going to have the tendency to distort a lot more, and maybe not in a pleasant way.
Yeah, I hear you.
As soon as you move to 5 strings and the lower frequencies, I think this thing will expose how it loses low end response compared to the other one.
Right. So we went through that, and now we're going to go through what the compressor limiter.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think bass players would enjoy this because it doesn't have the sustainer part. This is a compressor limiter. It's what you see on amplifiers like this Warwick one.
Right.
They built it in so that you can achieve a maximum headroom and make it easier on your playing ability. This one can handle any active input at all. And this one will have less coloration. If you like the preamp sound in here, you like a little bit of dirt, you might miss it on this one. So let's take a look at this one.
Beautiful.
Yes.
That's so musical. Wow.
So what I did there is I set it up so that when you saw this light go from green to red, the compressor was working. So if Juan plays lightly, play aggressive. I think we get a little bit of breakup from the speaker, but
we have a little combo amp, and I hit hard, so. Yeah. But the one thing I was going to add that I've been using it though at the end because I have like certain effects that I can't tame.
Yeah.
And if I tame like lower the volume or then you lose the quality that you're going for in the first place. So I use that to tame them. Is that accurate?
That's absolutely awesome. So what you would do is you would set this so that when you put on everything, you put on your bass synth and it's just going, everything's going crazy. And you might be, hey, why don't you go ahead and play something pretty loud for a second? And you might set it to infinity so it would never get louder than, everything on.
Right.
Instead of that.
Right.
So, and it's pretty transparent.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So,
I mean, that's why it worked for me because I knew that there, like certain instances, like there's certain, like some bands, like I don't give a shit. I just let it go ape shit when I get loud. They all are cool with dealing with it. But there's certain instances when they're like, can you tame that? Like you can't have these jumps.
Right.
And I'm like, boom.
Yeah.
I go to your compressor limiter.
Yeah. So that's another distinction between the two types of compressors. If you're a bass player and you're looking at something for a tone shaping tool or a compressor effect, like you like your CS2.
Right.
It does a lot of things for you. That's at the beginning of the chain to keep the overall noise level down. If you had it after a drive pedal, oh my God, it would go crazy.
It sucks. Even like when you put the wah-wah and the fucked up shit I have to do is like I got to put an envelope filter before it because it doesn't work the other way. Mm-hmm. So when you're playing, it's if I have a wrong pickup setting or if I'm not playing, it's just But when I play, it really articulates the envelope really well. So there's so many combos I've tried. But
then this style, the limiter, it's really flexible. It can go anywhere in your signal chain. So a bass player can put it right there at the end to watch after everything that he's doing or any kind of possibility. It doesn't have to follow the rules. You might see something on the internet that says, put your compressors first. With the limiter kind, without an expander or a sustainer, they can go anywhere. Just like you're using there.
Well, and so I'm trying to think we covered so much on yesterday on how they actually operate. Even the ratios, like that shit didn't make sense to me at all. I was like, you were like, this is the setting you want to use. And I'm like, fuck, I'm going to watch this video again because it was so valuable. And I know that a lot of bass players, like, I get asked a lot, like, can you explain compression? I'm like, it's just not that easy. Mm-hmm. I've explained it before, and then I got hammered in the comments. I'm like, that's not right. And then I asked my engineer friend, who's, he's Robert Keeley, he's won tons of Grammys and done amazing records, and he's like, no, you're right, but then I see what they're saying, and they're right. So I'm like going, okay, so it's this flexible explanation, I guess.
mean, music is about breaking the rules anyways, you know what I mean? if you got the tool to work for yourself. But do you have something that's like a slap funk thing?
I don't slap, but I can slap.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay, good. Okay, so that's no compression.
Right.
Now let's listen to something that's like 8-to-1, right?
Okay.
Maybe 8-to-1, and pretty heavy compression then.
Okay. Man,
it makes it totally easy.
And it makes it easy to play.
Right.
All of a sudden I go, well, I'm not saying I can slap, but I was like, that made it easier to do some shitty slapping.
We'll do it off, and then I'll turn it on after you play.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Life is easy with the compressor. Wow. It gets it's hard to get used to it at first, or you might even go, I don't hear what it's doing. It doesn't even make sense what it's doing. But if you can take the time to play with the threshold when it triggers, like I only want it on the hard notes, so you got to set it so that the red light comes on only on those peaks. And then you're like, okay, I think funk is a lot of compression, and that's, 10-to-1 is a lot of compression. If it was just going to be, hey, I want to just sound good on a recording, and I want to still sound like I have life in my playing. I don't want it to be just then I might do something like 4-to-1.
Okay.
So
well, it sounds you brought up something I gotta ask you. So so maybe because in early days with Larry Graham and who created slapping, he was obviously distorted. He also used the that overdrive that was on his Roland jet phaser.
Yeah.
And so he was overdriven. So that would be basically compression.
Exactly. Overdrive is clipping diodes.
Right.
Right. That is a form of compression.
Okay. And so then also active electronic basses, which all the slap dudes use.
Yeah. Yeah, they're very high powered. So
that's pulling up your volume so it's easier to play.
Yeah.
because you're not it's not coming from your hands as you're not pushing as hard on your hands to get the sound. It's the active electronics are lifting that volume up.
Sure.
So then it'd be the hardest is to slap on a passive bass. Maybe that's why I don't slap, because I go, fuck, it's hard to do. You know what I mean? And
I think you need a tool, right? We were talking yesterday about effect and tool.
Right.
And sometimes this tool, monitoring those things.
I told you. Yeah, I'm fucking giving you guys hundreds of thousands of dollars of ideas right now for free because you didn't know this, because I didn't know this. And so if you're having a hard time with your slap, get that compressor and watch your slap become, you're going to be like, shit, I'm doing stuff that I never thought I could do. Because I don't know. It's because your ears are telling your hands, make these adjustments now. You don't have to do what you're doing.
Right.
That's what happens.
Then you can focus on the music.
Right.
Instead of like, I can't get this note to pop as loud as it should.
Dope.
Yep.
So we're going to plug in, what do you want to do next? Active bass or fretless?
I want to show how bass players should pay attention to which one, because what works for you, because you like single coil pickups, which I do too. I think they're more expressive.
Yes.
But you got bass players that play an active bass or a 5-string, and let's see what can go right and wrong if you use each side.
All right, so let's go active first then.
Sure.
Right here, Robert Trujillo's. Hopefully it's got a battery that works in it.
Yeah.
Shit, it does. Okay, so this is definitely an active bass, Robert.
Okay, so let's listen to that low end response then.
It brings out the high end active shit that you
Is it snowing or raining in here?
Yeah. And then the bass went this big. No, I don't
so
like
bad.
it. No. And so the thing is, like, I've always said that too. I've always told guys that I've rarely ever heard active basses sound good with effects, because what happens in fuzzes, distortions, compressor sustainers is the thing I hate the most about active electronics is that top end, and then that's the thing that gets thrown out more than anything.
Yeah, this thing's going crazy.
It just goes like, here you go, here's all that top end. I mean, I've seen tons of bands, and then the bass player kick into his fuzz, and he's using active electronics. I'm like, God, that sucks. It's like your low end's gone, and it's just all the sheerness.
Even if we take off the treble and we're listening to just a straight compressor,
it's like you stripped all the it's lost its kryptonite,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you just don't need that. You wouldn't need a compressor sustainer with active electronics because it's already pumping you up. Yeah. Okay, cool. So, and then how about that?
Now let's listen to how much more natural a compressor limiter. Now remember, this kind of, I think the folks that own the copyright on the word DBX get mad at me if I put it in sales literature, but this has got a lineage that makes sense coming from DBX. So if you're a fan of DBX old style recordings and you know how good they sound on the bass guitar, the guys that used to work there and develop those compressor chips started a company called That Corp. And if you're really into gear, you know that That Corp makes the premier audio processing chips. And so these guys are coming from a bass compressor world. They're coming from, hey, we're going to still make this chip in America. We're still going to, build the most robust platform there possibly is. And that's what made it really fun to work on this thing, because it's such a precise tool. So now I think that it should be able to handle anything we throw at it.
All right.
There's off.
Yeah.
That thing's just pushing that amp.
We probably should have brought that amp down a little. Here we go. Yeah.
Let me see if I can we bring the amp down?
Yeah. So that would be
just a teeny
here.
Let's see. A little bit, huh? You hear a
Well, you know what? There's only one volume. It's not. It doesn't have a master.
Right.
And
Let's hear it again. Okay. Go ahead.
Let's try even drastic. That. I'm telling you, man. Active electronics are tricky. I don't know how hot these pickups are. I mean.
They can be really, really hot.
I fucking have always hated them, man. I can't play with them. I just think it's just like, it's so artificial to me. For me, like, I know there's millions of amazing bass players who can rip on them, but I can't.
Let's see. So we'll put this on. It doesn't take much. You'll notice with an active bass, it doesn't take much to start the compressor. It's already, cutting so much.
Right.
Same thing again. This is with the compressor off.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I wanted to show. Do you see how the amp is breaking up there?
Right there,
Okay,
right there.
Then we go back over here.
Yeah. I mean, it's less, but yeah, it doesn't like that.
Plus, we discovered that this Warwick amplifier has a built-in compressor too.
It does.
So we've got battling compressors.
Yes.
So it's hard to show that example.
Well, we're in active world, so to me, it's like, you guys are on your own. I'm not doing active dudes any favors. I'm not here to help them out. I'm here to help out the passive dudes who want to do crazy effects and shit. So let's try something else. Let's try the fretless behind you, which I love fretless, and I love playing fretless. And to me, fretless has so much more articulation possibilities. Yeah. I mean, I play a ton of fretless. Should we turn it up?
Yep.
I don't think there's a volume on this dude. Okay. You guys are like, well, what about compressors with 5-string? That is a 5-string acoustic.
Okay, now let's listen to a compressor sustainer now.
Okay. Oh, we got acoustic bass, so that's gonna
Yeah.
be.
Okay.
Distortion.
There's a problem with compressors and acoustic basses, right? Because they're trying to bring up
Right.
the bottom end and sustain it, and of course it starts to feed back.
Right.
That's a little
And
challenge.
we're really close to it. We're really close to the amp, so
That's cool. So what kind of fretless bass do you play?
Fender. So I have a Fender PJ, and it's from 1970, and it's all passive. Mm-hmm. And I also have a Jonas Hellborg, but it's not done yet. But it's a fretless. But that's a Warwick bass. But mainly, my main one from throughout my career has been a Fender. So
Great. Let's listen to how this helps now, because this is not going to have the sustainer.
Right.
Okay.
So, you know what I was going to ask you? So, a lot of guys do play 5-string, and how do you approach a compressor limiter with the 5-string? Like, because a lot of times that low note doesn't get articulated as well as the rest of the notes. So, like, you're like the B, the the C, the D. I mean, what would you do if a guy's going, man, like B string's just not coming out? What would you recommend?
Yeah. So, in some cases, I would look to putting a little bit of compression on there, maybe only 4-to-1, so it doesn't have the tendency to reduce the B string as much, right? And we just don't need a lot of gain reduction. These louder strings to be just a little bit quieter. So go ahead.
So, 'cause, 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 ' See, I'm losing characteristic. When you shut it off, I'm losing characteristic on these notes
That's
here.
right. I could hear just a little bit there, just enough to make a difference.
Right.
Then we put it back.
Like you can, the articulations there. Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know,
we can help. That's just a slight amount of compression. It's only bringing down the peak. So in other words, you're going to find something that's resonant with your acoustic bass or your jazz bass, or it was a P bass you said,
P bass,
right?
yeah.
And you're going to find something that's a little too loud, and then you're going to want to have it just bring down just those peaks. It's easy to do over compression. So if you're ever wondering like, I wonder if that's kind of too much, or if I'm using, it's always best to turn it down.
Right,
and be more natural and open.
Sure.
But there's a perfect spot for it to help those little bit of dynamics, so you can ignore, the fact that, is the amplifier losing it down there at 30 hertz, or is it my instrument?
Right.
And this can help even those things out just a little bit if it's from your instrument.
Got it. Mm-hmm. And so the one thing I've noticed the whole time we've been doing these examples, the knobs on the right we haven't been adjusting those as much, right? And that is
that's because the way that Corp designed this chip to have an auto attack and release, they're actually studying the transients, how much energy is coming in, how fast it's decaying, and they do some miracle stuff, and they compute an attack and release time so you don't have to think about it.
Got it.
And it's based on, what you're playing, what the content. In their literature, they're saying that, the music content is, we're weighing it, averaging it, and seeing how fast it's releasing, and, how much it jumps up in signal length. And so they're adjusting those things on the fly. If you want to do a manual override, say you want some sort of bizarre effect, from compression, you can set release time you get weird, delays and.
But otherwise, it's 12 o'clock and you're just at the magic zone.
You just turn them off.
Oh, you got them off. All right.
Yeah, they don't matter where they are.
Right. Got it. Because they're off. Got it.
But if sometimes you know what you're doing. Like if you want a slow attack, let's see. We can find some kind of weird example. Hit it and let me hear how it rings out. Keep on again. Okay. Do it again. Now let's listen to it off. Okay. It's really hard to undo what they've done in there. You know what I mean? To find an example that's so wrong that you can hear it.
Right.
But a lot of times with something that's really sharp, like a drum, a hi-hat, you know what I mean? Those have got some huge spikes in the levels.
Sure.
And that's where it makes a bigger difference. Not so much for guitar and bass.
Okay. Good for me to know, because I have this, and I think when I was talking to you about it, I love it, but it's always scary for me because, when you're throwing up on a festival thing and something has a lot of knobs and your shit's always going to be all dialed in wrong. I go, anything with a lot of pedals will scare the shit out of me, because when I don't know what's wrong and I'm problem solving on stage during the first song, the least amount of knobs on a pedal, the better, because I can go quicker through the problem solving. And if I have something like that with a lot of nod switches, I'm like, oh goddamn, I don't know, I'm just gonna fucking turn it off, not use it. So now that you've explained, because I probably ultimately use it the way you've explained it, but I didn't know that's why
Yeah, we always consider that. It's dark on stage, you can't see nothing.
Right.
Heaven knows who stepped on it, and we try to give it this if everything's at noon, is it gonna be good enough to go? And sure enough,
that's the shit.
Yes.
Fuck yeah.
There it's off. You're not gonna die. You just go. Okay, I'm gonna put everything at noon, and you notice it's compressing just your peaks. Yep, and it's got just a small amount of reduction on those peaks, so you're ready to go. As opposed to maybe this one here. It's. Next thing you're wondering, where did my sound go?
Yeah.
You're over there fiddling with knobs.
And you gotta get
and it's not doing anything, right? Because it's the wrong control.
Yeah, right.
I see the smile on your face because I think that's most similar to the CS2.
Yes.
It fits what your ears are used to and how you make music, I think.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I wouldn't use it with this acoustic bass, but I would use it with my bass. And
Sure.
and really, I don't know. I don't think I have. But the smaller one you make is that, right?
The smaller one we make is like that. The
that.
2 knob and the 4 knob.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. And the CS2 is kind of like is Boss's take on the Dynacomp and those things.
Right.
Different chip, but the same type of circuit.
Right.
So.
And like, trust me, I do remove it a lot because if I can't, like, if I'm doing something really mellow, I can't have all that noise.
Yeah.
It's just in between songs or stops, like you do it, you're not playing, all of a sudden there's this fucking light noise, like, and I know you're turning it on and off, but even that has a click sound or something else,
Yeah.
It's just a lot of work, and I've always wanted to like find something else that I didn't have to worry about that much interference, but I guess I'm stuck there, But yeah, it just makes the articulation, and maybe also because like, I've been fucking in bands for 30 years. Like, I'm sure I've lost top end. So I need that replaced with some effect.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, man, like, don't ask me to mix your record. It's going to be all hi-hats and tambourines and shit. So anyway, thank you. We're here at Guitcon. I forgot to say, this Pedals and Effects. We are at Guitcon. Robert Keeley's been here with us all week, and we've been blowing out videos. And I'm telling you, I really think that this is probably one of the top 3 most important videos we've ever made. So we have a guy who really perfectly articulates compressors. So I just recommend that you rewind this a few times and watch it. Don't lose interest. You're going to learn it. It's made total sense to me. I know it'll make total sense to you. Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Bye-bye.